Good morning, everybody. This is the Special Committee for COVID-19 Response. So first on the agenda, we have Office of the Governor, Linda Chu Takayama, the Governor's Chief of Staff. So do you want to start with anything, Linda?
Yes. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss some of the inputs that support the complex management of the state's COVID-19 activity. To engage in the battle against the virus, which is now known as COVID-19, the governor did establish an incident command headed up by Major General Kenneth Hara. For purposes of the COVID-19 effort, the general also oversees the work of 5 major sections. That's included in the diagram in the charts that were provided. He has direct command of uniformed and civilian staff in both the Hawai'i National Guard and the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency, also known as Ha'ima.
Which page is that?
Hello?
Yeah, which page is that?
I would note that I really can't speak to the general's organizational structure or his day-to-day operations. I'm not really part of that, but I understand he is holding a confidential briefing for senior officials later on this afternoon when it would be the appropriate time to raise operational questions. I do know that the command's activities are the result of feedback and implementation by organizations and individuals from federal, state, and local sources, both public and private. The focus has generally been categorized by prevention, care, and recovery, and those are kind of the 3 buckets he's looking at. It's personally been really gratifying to me to witness the tremendous support and sacrifice that so many people and businesses are making to ensure the success of our efforts. This disease, after all, is large enough to bring down entire countries. So it's clear that it will take all of us working together to defeat it. Incident Command under General Hara provides direction and leadership, but it is supported by the entirety of the executive branch of state government. Through a variety of methods, constant communication and networking, issues related to this dynamic situation are raised, analyzed, and resolved on a daily basis, sometimes even on a minute-to-minute basis. I think all of us are united in a resolve to ensure the health and safety of the community, many working unstinting hours to that end. Designated groups meet several days a week. Some are held daily. In fact, there's one going on even as we speak. These include the emergency operations centers called the EOC of each county. Most of the time, they are also attended by the mayors who sit in on the EOC. The information exchanged at these meetings are highly instructive and invaluable, actually, to the implementation of policies adopted by the command. Each sector reports out. Takes a while to go through the roster. They raise concerns and they get feedback. Like most organizations, some decisions are made on the spot. Others require more extensive consultation and research. These sectors include executive branch departments, which serve important support functions. For instance, the Attorney General provides legal assistance. The Health Department provides public health expertise and recommendations. The Department of Transportation has planned and operates the airport quarantine effort. And virtually every department in the state is providing some service and advice to the group as a whole. Additionally, all departments deal daily with the consequences of the policies implemented because of COVID-19. As an example, which you probably know well, the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations is facing record unemployment insurance claims due to business closures. Well in excess now of over 100. The last report I got, I think, was more than 107,000 claims, new claims. The Department of Agriculture is dealing with finding new markets for farm produce, while at the same time pleading with shippers to continue moving cattle to the mainland, for instance. The Department of Human Services is experiencing a higher demand for Medicaid and food stamps, which these days is called SNAP. Public safety, as you are aware from the articles in the newspaper, is dealing with a frustration with overcrowded facilities. They have a hard time. In fact, they can't do, the social distancing. And so that leads to real concerns about what the health effects of that might be. So we're trying to deal with those kinds of things, trying to work out what is going on with the Federal Detention Center, for instance. Governor sent a letter just yesterday to the president asking him to allow us to lease additional space in the Federal Detention Center because in recent weeks we have been denied access to the center. Other out-of-state influences include the governors of 50 states and all the territories. They meet weekly over the phone to share best practices, worst mistakes, and greatest frustration. The White House weighs in with the president and vice president, who, by the way, chairs the Federal Coronavirus Task Force. This is important because, and they meet with all of the governors. So far, it's been weekly. But it's important because federal assistance, or the lack of it, can determine if states have access to funds, supplies, or equipment. In many instances, they have been helpful in getting us access to certain kinds of supplies. In other instances, we end up actually competing with them for the same source of supplies. In other cases, they have been helpful. We just recently, I think it was yesterday, we were granted Title 32 status. That provides that the federal government would pay for activation of the National Guard to support COVID-19 duties. For instance, screening at the airport. My understanding is that this applies for the next 30 days. Other states who have been granted Title 32 status have been granted a short extension after the 30 days, and hopefully that will be the case for us as well. The Congress, as you know, passed the CARES Act, which provides unprecedented funding for programs related to COVID-19. We expect to receive more than $4 billion for expansion of established programs such as unemployment insurance, certain kinds of child care programs, certain kinds of educational programs. We're still looking at all of those various kinds of program monies. The full guidance for how we can and cannot use those funds hasn't entirely come down yet. So staff are still kind of looking at that to see what that is. We are determined that we're going to spend every penny of that money, and we'll spend it before we have to get to our own state general fund. An additional $1.25 billion is available to be shared between state and the only county that qualifies for that money, which is Honolulu County. They require that the county have a population of more than 500,000. So obviously, we only have one county that is eligible for that. So there is a team now trying to figure out how to allocate those funds fairly. Non-governmental support has also been a pretty significant factor. Many businesses have opted, for instance, on their own to maintain employees on the payroll, sometimes in full or on furlough. They pay for the benefits while allowing them to file for unemployment insurance coverage. So that's been a big help for folks who would otherwise have to be laid off. Other businesses have offered hotel rooms to healthcare workers or first responders. One business changed his rum distillery into a manufacturer of hand sanitizers and provided it free to a number of homeless shelters. Another company is offering free cargo shipping. Several others, both businesses as well as community groups, some even just individuals getting together, making and delivering meals to shut-ins, and those kinds of things. So these offers are, to the most part, channeled and fielded to incident command through a website, or I guess email called covidkokua@hawaii.gov. So if you run across some of these kinds of opportunities, please direct them there. Sadly, just as many countless companies and individuals have come forward with offers of goods and assistance, there probably have been as many who have stepped forward with desperate pleas for help. Some are businesses needing tax relief or an exemption of some kind. Some are individuals who are just confused by the changing regulations or looking for direction to social services. Last month, we asked AUW to reactivate the coalition of social service agencies that was once tied to 211. This was a group of, I think it was about 20 different organizations that could provide help to people in need to avoid an eviction or to pay medical bills or some kind of social service assistance. So my understanding is that Norm Baker at AUW is trying to put that together now, and we've agreed that we will try to steer any offers of funding to that effort. Otherwise, concerns and trends arising from different kinds of sources, whether it's from the COVID COCUA line or from the COVID exemptions line, we funnel them back to Incident Command for any further action as an indication of concerns that need to be addressed in the community. Legislators have also been weighing in individually on matters of concern and ideas for improvement. We recognize it might not be so easy during this period while the Capitol is closed to get the communications to us. So we encourage you to direct your questions, concerns, or requests for information to our Legislative and Policy Director, who can respond to you or chase down the answers for you and direct your inquiry to the appropriate agency. This person is Kim Sparlin. You can reach her at 586-0794 or kimberly.m.sparlin@hawaii.gov. And then as a reminder, information on COVID-19 news and activities is available on the DOH website, which hopefully you're familiar with. If not, we're happy to sign you up for daily updates and keep you as informed as possible. Through the JIP, the Joint Information Center, we try to keep that website as updated as possible, as broad in scope as possible in terms of some of the activities that are going on.
Linda, can you repeat that?
So looking beyond the immediate public health crisis, business, cultural, and nonprofit sectors, we realize we'll have to join together in an economic recovery effort that will result in a renewed Hawaii. We've already started that process, and we look forward to working with you to make it happen. So thank you very much.
Can you repeat Kim Sparlin's contact information again, please?
Pardon me?
Can you repeat Kim Sparlin's contact information?
Did you say Kim Sparlin?
Yeah.
Her telephone number, 586-0794, or her email, Kimberly, she spells her name a little bit different, KYMBERLY .M like Mary .Sparlin, S like Sam, PARLIN @hawaii.gov.
Questions? No, don't. Just assume. Senator Kim.
Aloha, Linda. Question regarding people coming from the mainland without any place to stay, homeless. I thought when we first discussed this, can you hear me?
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you know what? Coming over the phone line, it's kind of garbled. So I'm going to turn my phone down and try to get your inquiry from the television, because I can't quite make it out on the phone line. So hold on for a second while I switch to my TV audio.
I think it's going to echo, but. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Can you hear me now, Linda? I think that's going to give you feedback. Just use the phone and turn off the TV. I think you have to.
Or you know what? I think it's
Turn off the TV and just use the phone. The feedback is coming through.
I think it's turned out.
Just turn off the TV. Yeah. Just use the phone.
Okay, I guess I'm going to have to use the phone line. Maybe.
You have to turn off the TV, I think. You turned off the TV?
We have to. We turned down the TV, so this is better. So maybe if you just kind of let's try speaking up and seeing if I can grab it that way.
Okay, can you hear me okay now?
I can hear you. At times it's coming in a little bit garbled. So, but you know, I can hear you.
Just concerns being raised.
Aloha, Senate Committee. This is Ryker. I'm sorry for the late appearance. I was calling into the wrong go-to meeting.
Ryker. Ryker, you.
Yes, can you hear me?
We're still.
Ryker, you're encroaching on my time now. I don't know what the committee wants to do.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
Ryker, just hold on. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, Linda.
Will do.
The concern being raised about visitors that are entering without a place to stay or homeless. I thought when we met with General Hara, that if they didn't have a place to stay, they were going to just send them back, and that it would be cheaper for us to just send these people back than to allow them to come in and try to find places to quarantine them. Can you give us?
That's correct. That's correct. We did discuss that yesterday, and the governor felt very strongly and directed the airport officials that, because they always ask, you know, and try to verify that they have some place to go to when they're in quarantine. And his direction was if they don't have a place to go to, that they have to turn around and leave the state immediately.
Okay, so that is.
And if necessary, if they're homeless, for instance, because I don't know if other states are still sending us their homeless people, but he also said if they turn out to be homeless, then we would tap into HTA, I believe, has a fund to send homeless people back to where they came from, and so that they agreed to do that.
I'm glad to hear that because we've been still seeing in the media where these people are, asking for places to stay. So does that start as of today?
I don't know if I caught the end of that, but that policy was agreed to yesterday. So I haven't checked today whether that, any of that was occurring today.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Gidani.
Thank you, Linda. My questions are, number one, will Governor now send a request to President to stop all non-essential travel to Hawaii like the mayors did? President Trump publicly stated that he wants to grant that request, but Governor must also ask.
He is considering it. Has not, to my knowledge anyway, made a decision on that. The White House is very interested. In fact, when they got the first letter from Mayor Caldwell, they immediately called us over here and asked us if Governor was going to sign on also. And at the time, we told them he was taking it under consideration, has not made a decision. To tell you the truth, I have not seen him today, so I don't know whether he subsequently made that decision or not.
Well, when you see him, can you ask him that question and the follow-up question then?
I will, and we'll let you know.
Yeah, so the follow-up question would be, what's his, why is he unwilling to take that measure when it could be how we in fact can flatten the curve and stop having to waste our time, our resources by the military and everybody at the airport trying to turn away homeless or find places for them or make sure they're staying in quarantine for the 14 days. And if they wouldn't come, we wouldn't have to do this. So that's my question.
Yeah, the way it works for airline travel, we have no ability. It's controlled by FAA, by the Fed. We have no ability to stop people from coming in. So that's why the quarantine upon arrival is what we can do. But before we take that step of asking the president to stop that travel, we wanted to make sure we understood what all the unintended consequences might be, and just being cautious and making sure that we knew what this was, because we don't want to ask FAA to stop the travel and then realize we made a mistake and then have to go back. So we're chasing down all of those things now, and we'll come to, I'm sure, a decision soon.
3 county mayors have already asked that. And I can tell you what the intended consequences will be if the governor does not make that decision. I just cannot understand it. He is putting people's lives in danger by not following through and doing exactly what 3 mayors have already done. Let's move on to my question.
I will pass that.
I know you don't have an answer, so I just hope you'll take it back.
I'll pass along your concerns, though.
Okay. We are getting many questions and emails about whether or not the governor can request also from the military that RIMPAC be canceled. Because if they 25 nations came last year, and they all, at some point, come into the harbor and get off the ships and wander around. So it would be better if it were just canceled. The other thing, my other question is, Can Department of Health now restate what their position on people wearing masks, as nationwide, and including the mayor yesterday, made a comment that even if you're not sick, if you're out in the public, it's okay to wear a mask as long as it's not the N95 that the medical community
They
needs.
cannot hear us though anymore. They said it's muffled.
Yes, and I believe that we're taking a look at how that might become, might work in terms of supplies.
Well, you can make your own. There are things on YouTube that show you how to make your own with a piece of cloth, old T-shirt. So even if they're not, able to find in the store, it's very easy to make.
Okay, I'll pass that along to Bruce Anderson and see if they have a recommendation.
Wait, you guys,
Thank you.
Senator Favela.
Couple of things. We keep on hearing from our constituents, and this is the problem we're having. This is the reason why Senator Kadani and everybody else here is frustrated. Our constituents don't understand why the governor cannot close the airport. Keep saying FAA, Trump, this and this, yeah? This is our state, yeah, that he represents the people of Hawaii. He runs DOT. If he tells DOT, close the airport, close the guys over there at the airport, how the planes will land? They're going to have to turn back. They're going to have to turn back. He needs to make a deep decision, dig down, right? It's better to ask for forgiveness than some people still dying. Does he understand that people is dying because people are coming in? And a simple fix for the homeless that is coming in from other states, check the manifest. If they don't have a return flight, they're homeless. If they're not local, they're homeless. Simple. Check the manifest, because the walk and talk detail that was taken away a long time ago used to do that. Check the manifest. Joe Smith, no return flight, no place to stay. He's homeless. Right now, I'm saying this is because we get 3 now. We had 1 last week, and now we get 2 more in my community of Ever Beach. Okay? They just landed a week and a half ago. They was told in Waikiki to go to the countryside where there's more beaches. So I like, no, how are we going to go again? We can't even right now support and even take care of our own constituents and our own people in Hawaii. Now we're going to be taking people that is coming in from other states. That is one. Yeah? So I know you don't have the answer, but please tell the governor to dig in deep and don't wait for another order from Trump. He can make the decision. He's the head of DOT. If there's nobody at DOT working at the airport will have to force to close. You know what I mean? And right now, as we're speaking right now, my phone is blowing up because we want to know who made and what person is making a call to send people that is infected with the virus to Waianae police station for holding. You heard about this? Did you hear about it yet? Yes. So everybody that is arrested, that is being positive for this virus, is being shipped out to Waianae police station. Is that true?
I don't know. I'll check that out.
Okay, another one is, I understand the situation about the 6 feet, yeah, for the prisoners, yeah? But the prisoners was like that for years already, next to each other, yeah? How come the prisoners, because they are not now have no outside contact, why is the prisoners are being released, yeah, if they have no contamination in the prison? They can get exemptions. They've been having exemptions all these years. Why not Attorney General decide now they want to leave 400 people? Do we know if the 400 people have some place to stay? Do we know if the 400 people that they're letting go have jobs? Those are the things that you gotta let the governor and the Attorney General needs to know. Don't make a decision for convenience for the prison overcrowding. The prison been overcrowded for years. This should not be a solution to stop the overcrowding because of a pandemic. 400 people who has no jobs, have no homes, guess what they're going to do? They're going into the community, not all, but most of them is going into the community, either sleep, live, and victimize the community. Those are the things that are considered. Public safety is number one, and seems like that's the second on the agenda for this administration. Airports not closing because of this. We let out prisons because of this. When are we, the constituents and the people that voted in these communities, are going to be first in the state of Hawaii instead of other people? Right now, we should not be thinking about releasing anybody from prison. Right now, I'm sorry that it is overcrowded, and we need to do better and try to not overcrowd it, but that's not the solution. Letting them into the community, not knowing if they have a job, where to take care of themselves, or if they have some place to live. If they have none of these things, they should not be released. They're going to be a burden upon the communities. And some of this, even like the lady went on TV, she committed murder. But her lawyer is saying she's scared she won't get the disease in prison, so she'll be released. There should not be an excuse why we're releasing prisoners. Please help our community, help our constituents, because we don't want us getting cracks out in the community when we get all these emails and phone calls. So please tell the governor to consider stopping the planes from coming in. And you said, oh, we might do something wrong. Well, it's better to ask for forgiveness, yeah, than let something happen because somebody came in with an infection that's infecting our communities. Because once this go community, we're done. And the homeless is going to be the guys who carry them. And they're not doing it on purpose, but they're going to slip through the cracks because we're letting other people come into the state. So please, Linda, try to talk to the governor and ask him, please, if they can consider to do these things what we've been asking for a while already. If they can please shut down unnecessary travel to Hawaii, and please do not let the prisoners out unless you know for a fact they have a home to go to, they have a job, and they're going to be able to fend for themselves instead of going into the community. Thank you.
And every day he delay is one more.
Yeah.
Senator Moriwaki.
As a point of clarification, the release of the prisoners was not an administrative action. That was from the court. And we didn't really have a lot to do with that.
Right, but you can talk to the Attorney General, right?
No, he can
We
talk to
did
the
ask the
CJ.
FAA to close some of the airports. Because,
Yeah.
of course, we have
To the CJ.
fixed expenses there, so it costs us money to keep the airports open when hardly anybody's coming in. But they refused to allow us to close any of the airports and threatened to revoke the grant they've been sending us for money to
But the government can
repair and maintain the airport. So we were not allowed to close the airport. I'll pass along your concerns, so I can understand why you feel so strongly about it.
But Linda, that is why we're asking that the governor sign the letter to the president. Every day he delays what more and more people are going to get sick and more people are going to die. Also, has he been in contact with the CJ? Because the governor does appoint, although this governor didn't appoint it, the governor does, do we appoint him? Yes, we appoint him. And then we confirm him. So has that discussion been taking place? Because our constituents are not happy that 400 plus prisoners are being talked about letting them back into the community. I've gotten a whole bunch of emails about them as well. So we should have a discussion with the CJ, or the governor should have a discussion with the CJ.
Well, what would be the follow-up then, Linda?
There already are discussions going back and forth between the judiciary and the attorney general to see what, if anything, needs to be done. My understanding is these have been ongoing, and at this point in time, I don't believe they are releasing additional inmates until they get some of these issues resolved.
The question is whether the governor is meeting with the CJ, not the AG, but the governor to express the concerns of his constituency.
Governor has talked to him over the phone, but the nuts and bolts of the issue are being handled by the Attorney General.
It will be interesting to find out what the governor's position would be regarding the releasing. Maybe he can make a statement in his next press release on what is his position on releasing all of these prisoners. Today at 2:30. Today at 2:30, he can maybe make that known to the public.
I think he has made statements in that regard, but you know what? He has a press conference coming up in the next hour or so, and maybe he can reiterate his position there, so the entire public is going to can understand where he stands.
Thank you.
Just one more thing, if you can. Going back to impact, yeah. How is it going to look on the communities, all communities, especially our children, graduation, prom, everything, all of these things, the commencements that have big impact on these children going forward. And then we're going to have impact, and those guys will be just walking around like a key like it was just yesterday. So we should make a stand and let the governor know that they should cancel. I don't know how they can go, what the protocol is, but they should cancel impact, because if they can cancel everything else in the state, from reciting to proms and everything, all the other events that we're having, concerts and everything, then the impact should not go on, because it's going to be another one with different countries coming here. And then on top of that, the military now is telling us that they're not going to give us any more information. Yeah, this is something that he said, that we're not getting information. If any of these military people does have the disease, we're not going to know, because it's considered, what you call that? What is that word they used last night? National security. Somebody who's infected going to affect our national security. Wow, really? So I think because of national security, we should cancel RIMPAC. So can you please pass it along? I appreciate it.
Senator.
Thank you so much.
Senator Moriwaki.
I have a number of questions, but just going back to the prisoners, they're all contained, so they're safe from COVID in the prisons. So going back to what Senator Della said, if there can be other housing that they can all be put in one place, hotels are opening up their rooms, someplace else where they're contained and can be quarantined in that way and isolated, then there would be less concern from the community other than dispersing them right into the community and not knowing where they are. So that's one suggestion if you take that back. I do have some other questions. You had mentioned, you had responded to the Senate Committee's request for how the chain of command is operating in the administration. And you said that there's Haima, and that's one structure, and then you said there's a State Department structure. We haven't gotten anything from you, but it would be very helpful to see what the chain of command is. I know that you're saying that each department is supporting in Haima, whether it's healthcare or unemployment and so forth, the airports. But what is that, and could you give that information to us so we can see how you're integrating the needs of the community with the structure that Haima has, which is really the protection, the preservation, supply chain, and how that integrates in the communication to the public, because I think that's where there's some disconnects, and if you can provide that for us, it'd be very helpful for us to help you get the kinds of services that people are crying for out in the community.
The work chart that I provided you maybe isn't quite so clear in that regard, but General Hara actually wears two hats. On the one hand, he is the head of the Hawai'i National Guard, but he is also the director, the head of Haima. So both organizations report directly.
For example, healthcare, if we're getting statistics on the cases or the screening, one of the other jurisdictions that have been very effective, they've done extensive screening and testing. They can see where the spread is. They can see where they should be containing. We don't have that kind of data, or do we have that kind of data? Who's in charge of that data? Because I've had calls to help in the supply of say, N95 masks or ventilators, and when called upon to give us that data, people were scrambling to find that data. So it seems to me, whether it's the Department of Health or the Hawai'i structure, there should be a real strong collection of data that will not only know what the positive cases are, where they are, but also what is that progression going forward? Are we spiking? When are we spiking? And some analysis of where that is going so that we can plan for it as well. And I just wanted to know who is doing that in the administration. Is it Department of Health, Healthcare Association of Hawaii, Ha'ima? It'd be good to know, because we need to be based on data when we make these projections and give you support to protect our people.
Yes, Ha'ima is collecting that information, and I don't know what that information is yet, but let me find out from them. Otherwise, the public information is all going out through the Joint Information Center, and I'm sure in the briefing that's going to be provided later this afternoon, there will be a fuller explanation of what the data collection effort is all about and how it can be accessed.
And we would like that data as well, because then, people will know. They'll take this seriously, because people are still out there, not taking it seriously, even to mask up or do anything else. We really, as a community, have to come together, and the more we know where we are, how far this contagion is spreading or not, and where it is, we can plan accordingly, and people can be more careful and be more considerate of everybody else around them. So it would be good to have that data and shared widely. So we are a community. We all need to work together.
I will pass your concerns along and encourage them to make more public what data they have access to.
Yeah, the number of tests each day, how many are positive? We get the positive, but how many tests were conducted? And, with 258 cases, how many tests were done? And see what that progression has been since March 11th or the beginning of February. It would be good to see how that projection is going forward. The last question I have is goes into Ryker's area of HR. The other day we met with the HR director, and we were concerned because there are a number of agencies, Labor Department being one, Land and Natural Resources another, parks and their harbors are needing to open their bathrooms 24/7, and they can't because they don't have the staffing, they don't have the support, and Ryker talked about redeployment. That would require lifting of Chapter 89, which he said the governor has done in his proclamation. So I would like to know how the governor can work with the unions to look at what this problem is on a big, broad scale, so that we can actually redeploy those workers who aren't doing the telework or at work, essential workers, so that we can bring them back to do some of these jobs in a more systematic way than, we need some people here, we need some people there, and we've asked the director, HR director, Ryker, to provide that information to us, but it really is, how do we then get that information and use it to move people to serve our public? So if you could look into that matter, whether it's the AG working with Ryker, we need to get some answers and the unions together to support us in this effort to really serve our people.
I will defer to Director Wada on that issue. I know he's been working on it and got his hands on more of the details than I would at this point.
Okay, thank you. We will ask him.
I guess then at the last meeting, Director Wada had said that he's waiting to get direction from you and the governor.
Did she hear you?
Linda.
Linda,
Yep.
Yeah. At the last meeting, the director had mentioned that he was waiting to get direction from you and the governor.
On what issue? On the redeployment of staff?
Yes.
and Chapter 89, lifting Chapter 89.
We have talked about that, and the governor and I are fully supportive of that. We just wanted to make sure that we were going to be, that we weren't going to get crosswise with the law and the union.
Okay, so since the last special committee meeting, you've had a meeting with the director to clarify some of these issues?
Well, we have expressed to the director that we really need to engage in the deployment or the redeployment of some of the workers who currently are classified as non-essential and unable to work from home. So I believe that's in process currently, but again, that you might want to address that issue with them. But we certainly, between me and the governor, we are not including hurdles in that regard, except as it applies to issues related to legal or RW.
Okay, but
Ask him.
has the governor actually waived some of the provisions that he mentioned in the proclamation, that he included in the proclamation?
I'm not sure what the status of that is, whether there needs to be, further action through either an executive order or a proclamation. But if there is something further needed, we would be, more than happy to get that done.
Okay, so as part of the proclamation, didn't it include that the governor can waive certain personnel laws?
Some of the proclamations have made that reference, whether we have been able to waive or address all of the chapters that need to be cited. I'm not sure, but we do have the Attorney General and her staff looking at what needs to be done in order to make it happen.
Okay, I guess part of the concern is that it seems like it's a reactive position versus understanding that DLIR is going to need as many people as possible, and now DBED will need probably as many people as possible to help processing SBA loans. And the longer that it waits, I mean, we're getting calls that people are not receiving their checks from labor. There still seems to be a lot of concern. The
We are
director.
determined to make that happen. In fact, I visited with the DLIR director and deputy just yesterday to tell them that we needed to speed things up. And I think he called me back this morning and has agreed that there are things that he will do to make that happen. I know that he's already set up a location to put in a new call center to start that process going. He's also been able to identify interpreters because many of the applicants don't speak English. So there are interpreters available now who can help Chinese-speaking individuals or Filipino-speaking individuals. You have to also find a site to locate these new workers because we have to observe the social distancing, and there's not enough room in the DLIR building to put all of them. So he found a location off-site, and so they're going to be working out of there. So, you know, I think he's working as fast as he can.
Okay, so why hasn't the governor decided to use his authority to waive some of these laws in light of the situation?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the last part of that.
Why hasn't the governor waived some of the rules, some of the statutes in the proclamation in light of the situation with DLIR and DBED?
If the Attorney General determines that that is necessary, we can do that fairly quickly. Some of the proclamations we have to turn around within 24 hours.
I guess so. Then it really
if that's necessary.
okay, but I guess it comes down to what ultimately the governor wants to accomplish. I mean, we can urge and we can push for certain things, but a lot of this is really the governor's call. And what we're seeing is that DLIR is flooded. DBED we expect to be flooded. Wouldn't you want to work backwards, saying, okay, if we need to get these things done, what do we have to push, versus taking it one step at a time? Why can't you just tell the Attorney General, look, if we have to amend the proclamation, we got to get this done. How do we get it done ASAP? The strategy doesn't seem to be as proactive as it is reactive.
Well, maybe it appears that way, but we are working with all due speed to get this done. I guess the Attorney General is having her folks research what needs to be accomplished in the next proclamation. If anything, I don't even know offhand whether that determination has been made yet, but we have said to all the parties involved is that we need to get this done as quickly as possible. So, you know, there are staff working on identifying what needs to be done, whether it's a matter of identifying which staff are going to be assigned, how they're going to be assigned, how they're going to be trained, whether there are any legal obstacles in the way that need to be removed.
No, I don't think we disagree. I think a lot of it is, these are questions we had asked in early March. We're just not sure why there's such a delay since we had asked for it a month ago.
I guess, well, I don't really know the answer to that, and maybe that's something that you can address with Ryker. All I know is at this point in time, we could ask them all to work as quickly as they possibly can.
Okay, so what I'm not sure is by issuing the proclamation, the Attorney General saying that the governor needs to take an additional step in invoking the waiver? Or doesn't just issuing the proclamation already do that?
We don't know that, and that's something that we need to determine whether any additional waivers need to be issued for that purpose. But you know, that's something that the legal folks are looking into. In the meantime, that's not stopping any of the other kinds of exercise that we're engaging in terms of identifying people who can provide these kinds of services and getting them situated in a place that's safe for them to provide these services and get them trained. So they, you know, because they're from different departments up and down.
But those are two different issues.
To get them trained to know how to do this stuff.
Those are two different issues. I think having him invoke whatever he needs to invoke, if that's even necessary, versus the strategy or the organization of where you're going to put people, how many people, what phone deadlines they're going to use. Why would you wait for all that data and all those all that statistics to be organized before you actually invoke? Why not just invoke?
We're not actually waiting. Different folks are doing different pieces of that, and it's all proceeding on, sort of parallel tracks, I think. So it's all going forward at the same time, even though it all needs to be done.
Okay, so the governor mentioned at the press conference that there are already some departments being deployed.
I'm sorry, I lost the last part of that.
The governor mentioned at the press conference that there are some departments that are being deployed to Department of Labor.
Some departments are being deployed to the Department.
Yes, we're intending that that would be accomplished. I think the Director Wada has been able to round up a list of folks who are available, who could be deployed, and I think Director Murakami has provided him with what his needs are in terms of the kinds of skill sets he's looking for and the number of people he needs, and Ryker is trying to fill that order.
Okay, so that hasn't occurred yet then?
I think they're in the process of doing that now.
Okay, so from which departments and how many people?
I don't know that. Sorry. We can probably get back to you on where and when.
Okay, and were they exempt employees?
I don't know. If they're not exempt employees, we might have to work that out with the union.
Okay, I was there to. So it's still a work in progress and nothing has been done. I think something is being done in terms of getting these folks set up. It might not be complete, but it's kind of on its way. When I talked to Ryker yesterday, he had been already putting some of it in place. Okay. I mean, we got legislative staff helping Department of Labor. I mean, we tried to get that as soon as possible, knowing that he needed some help. I'm just hoping that you guys can at least match the speed of some of these offices in getting the Department of Labor and Department of Business Economic Development some help.
Linda, my concern is that the urgency of this emergency doesn't seem to be felt by the administration going forward. When the governor's proclamation on March 4th suspended Chapter 89, which is a collective bargaining law, and it says, and I'm going to quote from what Ryker gave us, to the extent necessary for county and state agencies to accomplish the emergency management functions contemplated under this proclamation, then it would seem from March 4th to now it's almost a month, and there should have been contemplated all of the emergency functions needed, and where they were understaffed, that it would be staffed, or at least identify how many positions and what it was to be. And that's our concern that we brought up with Ryker the other day, is that this should have been in the planning stages, ready to go. And the Chapter 89, since it does deal with all of our collective bargaining units, that the governor and Ryker should have been meeting with all the unions to say this is the progression. We are in a state of emergency. It's not, business as usual. And how might we proceed in a systematic way so we don't hurt any employees, but we get the state's work done, and done quickly. Labor Department, SBA, as the chair said, also the enforcement of our parks and beaches, all of the employees are very much emergency, not to mention healthcare emergency functions. So these should have been right at the top of the list in terms of coming up with the plan for redeploying. And you know, I'm really disappointed it's not happening, and it's going to be starting the process. But you can take the word back to the governor that this really is an emergency situation to get our state employees on board with helping us do the business of government to help all of our communities. So,
Thank you. I will let them know that.
thank you.
Okay, I guess what we'll do is we'll follow up with sending you those questions in writing. I had some questions about the chart, but you know what, we'll move on. So thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
Okay, so next, if we could move on to the Department of Human Resources. Ryker, are you ready?
I am, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I did want to give the committee just a quick heads up. I'm having a little bit of a hard time hearing Senator Moriwaki, and every now and then Senator Kim. But again, in terms of opening statement, we did provide at about 10 o'clock this morning response to the RFI from the special committee, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that the committee has in terms of follow-up.
Okay, so maybe you did not hear what I asked Linda, but it was in terms of what you had presented to us as well. The governor's proclamation of March 4th stated that Chapter 89 could be lifted to the extent that we were in emergency mode and we could redeploy to meet the needs of our community. So from March 4th to now, and when we asked you the other day, not having a plan in place or not meeting with the unions to give them a heads up and start working on a plan, I'm really concerned that that's not happening and happening soon enough. So my question to Linda was to go back to the governor and ask what does that mean and how can he help in expediting this. But have you since met with the unions or with all the departments to see what are the needs, where are the staff? And I know for a fact there's Labor Department, SBA, also DOBOR and DOCARE and Land and Natural Resources that have to clean the bathrooms in the parks and so forth, stay open. And there are real needs there before the COVID crisis. So how is that being managed? And I know that you had staff working on modernization before the crisis. And
they cannot remember all of that and then answer the question. You got it.
So what have you done with meeting with the unions? And number two, what have you done with using your staff on modernization that met with all the departments to get the information that we asked you the other day on needs and staffing?
Thank you for the question, Senator, and thank you for speaking up. I can hear you much more clearly now. So the first part, in terms of meeting with the unions, what we did provide to you in the RFI was on page 3 was just some of the communications that we had with regard to COVID and our DHER's response to COVID in general. We have immediately after the proclamation on March 4th, immediately called, as I had indicated previously, all of the unions. The only one that I was not able to speak to was HSTA. Since then, we continue to work with the unions on a multitude of issues related to the COVID-19 response as well as the HR population. We have not had further conversations with the union except for HFFA regarding clarification on the governor's position regarding suspension of 89. And the reason being is that decision has not been to effectuate that has not been made by the governor yet. In terms of assisting the other departments, we did, since our last meeting together in the last special Senate Special Committee, we did reach out to the departments to see which other departments besides DLIR, which we had spoken about last time, were in need of assistance. The ones that we had received response from in terms of the possibility of using redeployed employees were the Department of Defense, the Department of Health, and the Department of Agriculture. We had heard anecdotally from DBED, but I have not received a response from DBED yet regarding a request for additional employees. What we have done, which is a continuation of the work we've been doing prior to your last hearing that I attended, was we continue to work on getting the information that we had talked about last time regarding the list of the employees in the 3 different groups. So each of the departments was, again, responsible to determine which employees fell into which particular group. We are in the process of getting that back from all of the departments right now. In response to one of the special committee's RFI questions, we anticipate getting all of that by Monday, April 6th. We should be able to aggregate it that day, and so it should be put together by the 7th, April 7th. At that point, what we'll do is we'll be then sending that out to the governor's office as well as Incident Command, General Hara. And then on our end, on the DHERD end, as we receive requests from departments regarding specific types of work or specific classes of work, we would then be matching up that list of the employees in the 3rd category that might be able to assist the departments in need. And so that's kind of what that's looking like right now. In the meantime, what we've also done is we've sent out requests to all the departments for any employees who are not only willing themselves to volunteer to help out, and in this case, it was just the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations, but any employees who would be willing to volunteer and help out there. And assuming that the department can either spare them or work around them, the Department of, as Chief of Staff had mentioned, basically what we had done is we had received the list of types of work and types of skill sets that DLIR is looking for. So as we receive any number of volunteers, we're going to match up those volunteers with Department of Labor and Industrial Relations, and it'll be a voluntary redeployment. So it will not require any suspension of 89, because it would just be something where the employees volunteering and the department that they're coming from would be redeploying them there.
So you're saying that, because what I see here is when you met with the unions on March 4th.
I'm sorry, Senator, could you speak up again?
Yeah, you said that in your report here, you said when you met with the unions on March 4th, you conveyed that there was no intention to suspend Chapter 89. And that March 4th was early on. Today we have 258 and growing. Yesterday, 258 and growing. Has there been, or are you going to be meeting with the unions? Because the redeployment voluntarily is one thing, not to touch Chapter 89, but there are other issues in terms of using the workers in that 3rd group where they're needed. And we have a lot of these needs. I see you don't have all of the departments listed, but there are needs elsewhere, and it may take working out of class, working out of bargaining unit, I don't know. But those kinds of issues, at least if not being used, to be discussed and some plan going forward and how that would be done, rather than, oh, we're going to do this now when the time comes. So I would strongly urge, and we would like to see some plan working with the unions on what this would look like as we start spiking. We're going to have more needs out there, and how do we use our employees most strategically? And it may not be the business as usual model. Most likely it's not today, and we really need to ramp up. So I think that what I haven't seen here is at least letting the unions know this is what we're going to do, and even getting some input from them. How can we work more agilely during this emergency situation?
Thank you for the question, Senator. So you are correct. Really what we're looking at right now is doing exactly that. We have been in, pretty much constant communication with all of our unions, most of all with HTA and UPW. And again, as I mentioned, I have had communications with HFFA as well. But right now, prior to us knowing what that need is and how that would be apportioned out or doled out, I think it would be premature for us to have discussions about how to set that up with the unions, considering that the decision to suspend portions of Chapter 89 has not been made yet. But we are planning on our side, on the Department of Human Resources Development side, exactly for that. And so we're preparing different scenarios of things that we might want to do. We're also trying to coordinate that with the different jurisdictions, including the counties and the other executive branch jurisdictions like DOE, UH, HHSC.
When the committee first asked for the contingency plan or emergency plan, I guess it was March 11th, that was the idea, was what is this levels of threat? Okay, we're at 2 at that point. Okay, now we're at 200, 300. What does that look like? And each level of threat, what does that look like, and what do we need to do? And that's how, going forward, at least being ready if and when it comes. Hopefully it doesn't come, but it's being ready to do that. And we have our state employees as a massive force that can be used to help the community, not only in this time of crisis, but in recovery going forward. But how does that look like? And each department should be really planning forward in that manner. And so in terms of the employees and where the essential employees should be placed, where those not needed can be redeployed is really important and should be done.
He's going to get lost in there, Sharon.
Yeah. So anyway, I just put one out for Dobor. They had the parks. They had 2 employees before the crisis to clean the bathrooms. They need to open the parks 24/7, and I don't know where they're getting the other employees to keep their restrooms open for the homeless that is required. So I stopped there.
Wait, I guess what she's trying to say is that when is this going to be finalized in regards to essential, non-essential, and deployment to different departments?
Thank you for the question, Senator. So again, what we're doing is we're going to aggregate that information. The aggregation should be done by, as long as we get it from all departments, it should be done by midday on April 7th, and will be communicated to Governor's Office and Incident Command at that time. Even though we have that, it's still going to be pending Governor's decision to suspend portions of Chapter 89 and then our follow-up with the unions regarding stuff. And so I can't give you an exact time. It would be dependent on that particular decision by the Governor. Oh, and I'm sorry, Senator Moriwaki, I will follow up with Dobor.
But Ryker, we saw your memo, which thank you for giving us a copy of that. Do you have a subsequent memo that asks different departments in this time of need, what are some of the kind of positions that you need to fill right away? So for instance, Department of Labor, DBED, maybe Dobor, do you have the opposite, where some departments in this crisis is going to need additional help?
Yeah, so Senator, that's the memo that we sent out, and I believe, I don't know if we attached it as a, hold on one second. But long story short, yes, we did send out a request to all departments for any departments that had a critical need right now. And so what listed on page 5 is a list of, in response to the Senate Committee's request, it's those 4 departments, DLIR, Defense, Health, and Agriculture, were the agencies that did respond back to us saying that, yes, they're going to have a critical need for redeployment of employees.
Okay, so far, these 4 departments are saying we need more people.
Yes, yes, all of those 4 departments. And so as I mentioned earlier, I hadn't heard about DOBOR, and I heard earlier this committee and chief of staff talking about DBED, and so I will reach out to both of them to verify their need as well.
Can you guys have questions? Senator Kim.
Ryker, I just want to follow up. When we last talked, you were going to get us a list of your workers, your employees, and their position, what they're doing. Do we have that?
Yes, Chair. Yes, Senator. That is attachment A. So this is what this way we sent as a sample regarding what the form we sent out to all of the executive branch departments. And so this particular form, it's again, this is what all the departments are filling out and sending back to us. And so this is what we're going to compile, and this is the data I was talking about aggregating on the 6th. This what I actually provided you is DHERD's list.
Right, and you have non-essential, but you're not necessarily telling us what they're doing. How do we determine?
I'm sorry, Senator, I couldn't hear that question. Could you speak up a little bit?
The list that I have shows X's under non-essential telework, but you don't necessarily explain what they're doing.
Well, this is what, again, we had from all the other senators, all the other departments. If you would like, I can follow up with this, a similar list with explanations.
Well, I think
for DHERD.
What I asked you for last meeting, because we were trying to determine whether or not they were, when you said that they were working and essential while they were at home, how do we determine that? And we asked for a description of what are the things that they're doing while at home, and you said you would get that to us. Just for your department. We didn't ask that for every department. Well, I didn't ask that for every department.
Sorry, I apologize, Senator. That was my misunderstanding. I will follow up using this exact same list with descriptions of our staff's work.
Yeah, because only that way we would know whether or not those non-essential workers could in fact be deployed to other areas, right?
Well, so, Senator, and I appreciate, thank you again for the question. What the concept regarding our aggregating the data and then being able potentially to redeploy staff to other areas or other departments that have critical needs really revolves around the third, or I should say the last column. It's the non-essential employees who are not able to telework. So those are the people whose work is not appropriate for telework, and that's the group that we are trying to aggregate to be able to send to incident command that we would be able to deploy to another area.
Yes, but there could be within the non-essential telework that work does not take up necessarily 8 hours of work. And that could maybe 1 or 2 could combine and free up one person, because the workload would probably be less than what it would be normally when government was in full operation.
Yeah, that's completely accurate, Senator. And so one of the ways that we're addressing this is through what we have been talking about earlier regarding the volunteers. DHERD, at the call for volunteers, DHERD right now, as of today, has about 16 people who volunteered to be redeployed to the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations. As we've talked with DILIR, their preference is, again, for full-time employees. A lot of our employees would like to continue doing their work responsibilities at DHERD, but then potentially help out with anything at night or for half a day. And so we're trying to work out right now how that process might work.
Understand, but in situations where it's dire, maybe you're going to have to double up on people and free one up completely so they can go over. I mean, those are just things that, in times of crisis like we are, we'll have to adjust. So instead of giving each person a half day to work someplace else, you combine the work so they have a full day and one get freed up. I mean, we have to be creative in how we're doing this.
I agree. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Please consider that.
Ryker, are you familiar with DLNR's fire division?
I'm sorry, their fire division?
Yeah, they have a fire.
I am not familiar with DLNR's fire division.
So it's only one person, and when there's a fire, other employees throughout the department stop what they're doing and they go and help put out the fire, the physical fire in the forest. So I know we can do it already. We're doing it now at a smaller scale with just that one division. People from throughout DLNR stop what they're doing, even though they're in different divisions, and they go and help with putting out the fire. And I think... Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Senator. I think that's actually what DLIR is doing right now. They're within interagency or intra-agency. They're redeploying their own staff to assist in the critical needs. What Director Murakami has relayed to me, not only do they have their current staff who's redeployed to help out with UI claims, but they have other vacancies and areas that they need as well. So we're trying to address both groups. We're trying to address the vacant groups that they need more help with, as well as helping to backfill or redeploy people to the positions where their own staff has to go back and do something else as well. But the concept is very similar to what you're talking about with regards to DLNR's fire.
So when you mean backfill, does that mean you're still hiring?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the last part of that.
When you say backfill, does that mean you're hiring?
We are not. And so when I say backfill, so for instance, if the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations is taking a person outside of UI and they're placing them there, that person eventually is going to need to go back to do their other DLIR work. And so what we're hoping to do is fill the vacant positions for DLIR, but then also as their own employees go back to their own positions, to use redeployed staff to fill those positions as well until DLIR can hire people to do that. So there are certain areas of the state where there are critical needs to hire new staff.
No, but I think that's a concern, because why would we start to do that when we have other people that can get deployed before they start to hire?
That are already being paid. Right, yeah.
I don't think that's a set process yet, Senator. It's just something that's been talked about with DLIR.
Okay, and I understand that you appreciate the interdepartment flexibility of people moving around, and maybe not every department is there, but I think what we're talking about is intra-department.
Yes, Senator, and that's the portion again that would require a decision by the governor to suspend portions of Chapter 89.
Okay, I just hope. I think that there has to be a process with DBED and even DLNR. Those are the two obvious examples where there's going to be some quick training. Is DBED ready to accept a lot of those people? They need to be. I don't think that we can wait too much. Hopefully Dennis is creating some kind of training manual so that when people come in, they can get going in responding to SBA calls.
Thank you, Senator. Again, I will follow up with DBED right after our conference today.
Okay, and I think, looking at your chart, and Senator Kim can correct me if I'm wrong, so you have it labeled essential, non-essential, and non-essential no telework. What the members may be asking for is another box or two other boxes that say they're working on existing duties or critical functions within the department, or they're working but they're redeployed to another department. Something like that.
Thank you, Senator. For our own list that we provided to you, we don't have anyone right now who's deployed to another department. And I think aside from some one-offs where independent, either individuals or departments have contacted Director Murakami, I don't think anyone is redeployed right now outside of their own department.
But you have 2 people that are non-essential and no telework. So right now they're at home.
Doing what?
You have
So, Senator, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question, but what I thought I gathered was the last column under the non-essential, no telework, that is the group that is at home and not doing the work that they were able to do while they were at their job site.
No, exactly. So that's where, why can't we redeploy those 2 people quickly?
Are you talking for the Department of Human Resources Development?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Senator, I didn't hear you. The 2 on our list?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
wait,
yes.
let me recognize Senator Kim.
What he's saying is that you have identified two workers in the 3rd column, non-essential, no telework. So why aren't those individuals being redeployed right away?
Those 2 individuals are 89-day hires, and they're not eligible to be redeployed. They're not full-time employees.
Still getting paid?
So 89-day hires are, can 89-day hires be relieved earlier than the 89-day?
So in this, for this particular situation that we're in now, generally speaking, 89-day hires, unless the department that they're working for considers them essential, they are not working, and they're also not being paid.
Okay, so those 2 are not being paid.
That's correct, Senator.
Do you know how many other 89-day hires there are throughout the departments?
I do not. I can get that information for you.
Well, I think that's important to know.
Yeah, I guess maybe when they have these charts, if you can put an asterisk or some kind of indication as to if they fall in that category.
Because I know the AG's office have a whole bunch of 89-day hires, investigators. So
Yeah.
what's happening to all of those?
So to some extent, there is some furlough already occurring if you're not going to continue to pay some of these 89-day hires.
We don't, I mean, the short answer to your question, Senator, is yes, but it's not really considered a furlough. As 89-day hires, it's almost like at-will employees.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'd be good to get a listing of all the departments with 89-day hires who are now no longer employed or being paid, being on the payroll.
Thank you, Senator. We will look into getting that for you. In the current request we put out for the departments, we haven't asked them to indicate that. And so because our turnaround time is Monday, I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get that by Monday's deadline, but we will work on getting that information for you.
Thank you.
I have a question follow on. So Ryker, on the non-essential, what exactly they're doing, if it's not essential and they're 89-day hires, we should look at that as well, because we're looking at, if they do go on furlough or if they are released, they can collect unemployment. So if we can kind of shrink our resources, our staffing, and then get the staffing other places, that would be helpful as well. So the 89-day hires all around would be helpful.
That is being considered as well, Senator. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and then at some point, on their last page, page 5, you had the list of the agencies that are in critical need of additional staff. Is that information going to be accessible? Because I think what we would like to see is that, let's say Department of Ag has 10 positions that they needed. And it would be good for the community to see that those 10 got filled. That that 10 people from another department are now helping Department of Ag, and likewise with the rest.
Yes, we can definitely provide that report, Senator. Right now, as you can see in the form we provided under Attachment A, it's an Excel form. And so as we, again, as the process takes place and we actually redeploy people either as volunteers or pending the suspension of portions of Chapter 89, we deploy people. We can definitely provide that report to you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ryker.
Thank you.
Thank you, committee.
Okay, so why don't we move on to, I think Department of Ag is going to be quick. Phyllis, are you on? Is she on? Not yet. Oh, okay, well, why don't we do DOE then? Let's see what I'm waiting.
Yes, I am. Thank you, Senator. I had to switch to phone because I had difficulty hearing all the questions from the committee members.
Okay, no, that's fine. Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to the committee, and I apologize that we had thought that you had received our COOP in mid-March, and when we checked the legislative website before this meeting, we noticed that our department plan was missing. So Dane, we sent it, and Dane did acknowledge receipt of it. So I apologize about that.
No, thank you for sending that in. I guess what we would like, I think you got a copy of written questions. Those questions came from different Senate members, so if you can just at least report on and respond to those questions.
Sure. I'll respond to questions. Thank you for providing the questions in advance regarding agriculture, and did you want me to respond to those specific questions for the committee, or would you like me to answer questions from the members?
No, I think it's more important that you can go ahead and just report the responses. And if there's any follow-up, we can do it after that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We were asked, with the signing of the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, or the CARES Act, is expected in federal assistance for our farmers and ag sector. And looking at the CARES Act, we identified what, considering the USDA program, that the emergency food assistance program commodities would probably be around 1.5 million. And then the TEFAP administration, we are estimating that 662,000 would come to the state. SNAP would be approximately 2.1 million. And those were some of the amounts of support through USDA programs for the CARES Act. We also know that it's going to provide $9.5 million to USDA to support ag producers impacted, including producers of specialty crops. And Senator and the members of the committee, you're aware that a majority of the crops that we grow in Hawaii are considered specialty crops. So that is a good news to hear. It will also support producers that supply local food systems, including farmers market, restaurants, producers, and that this new program, it is a new program. We're waiting for USDA to provide details how to apply or how much funding producers can get. And so there is a USDA website posted that's available to the public, which is www.usda.gov/coronavirus. In addition, I think people are more aware of the assistance to ag producers from SBA, and that they are getting payroll protection for agriculture. So that's something that we've been trying to share information with people that have been calling. We've been referring them to SBA for that. And the second question was, will potential federal stimulus money for agriculture likely be distributed by USDA or our department? And we believe that the federal stimulus monies will probably be distributed by USDA. Is it possible for Department of Agriculture to defer ag loan payments and make emergency loans and additional grants available for local farmers? Yes, we are able to defer agricultural loan payments, and because the governor did do an emergency proclamation for COVID-19, we're going to be putting on our agenda for the board meeting on April 14th to ask the board to activate the emergency loan for COVID-19. And in the meantime, our ag loan division can work with existing borrowers on workout agreements, and the chairperson can modify any permanent modifications and approve modifications to existing loans. Is it possible for DOTAX to suspend the filing of ag business tax returns and the payment of all business taxes to the state government for the duration of the pandemic? And we believe that we do defer to DOTAX for that, but we do believe that they have already postponed the 2019 state income tax returns to July 20th. Is it possible for governor to expedite the release of grant and aid and construction funding for ag-related projects? And I believe governor is working with the legislature. We have provided to governor's office and BNF a list of, shovel-ready CIP projects for the next 6 to 12 months. I believe that because of that request for our information, Budget and Finance, working with Governor, will expedite the approval process of the CIP request. What are the key critical system vulnerabilities to statewide food insecurity in the instance of natural or human disasters like COVID-19? What are the key weaknesses in the system, and what plans are in place to address the vulnerabilities? So through this past month, we've noticed that it's confirmed that our transportation shipping is a weakness, that our state lacks adequate facilities, especially cold storage. Our farmers, because their markets and their customers have temporarily closed suddenly, have already harvested or have crops in the ground that need to be cut and stored that are perishable. So we recognize through our efforts working with Takayama to locate storage or cold storage space that is a weakness. We have, through the concept of farm to state, reached out to Department of Education, also and Hawai'i, and also the private schools and SODEC, to see if, because they are not serving meals to students as they usually would in the school year, whether or not there is cold storage space available that possibly could be used for farmers that have inventory of perishable produce. We haven't gotten back yet or response back, but we did reach out. We also have received requests for funds for, renting or purchasing cold storage space from our stakeholders. So we are keeping that information and waiting to see what kind of federal dollars will come to the state for COVID that would be identified for agriculture, so we could use that, those requests as potential ways to use the federal aid dollars. We are concerned, as always, now and even during the time of natural disasters, that about our irrigation systems. Director Wada did mention that our department was one of the 4 that identified that we would need additional workers, and so I just want to clarify that we responded by saying that we could possibly need extra workers for our irrigation systems, and then also for ADC's Waiho'oli Did system, because our irrigation systems are manned by a small number of staff that go out and maintain these systems, and the concern was that if one of the staff were to be exposed to COVID-19 and would have to go into self-isolation or quarantine, it would affect the crew, the rest of the members of the crew, and we would not have the ability to maintain our irrigation system. Usually in disaster situations, ADC and the Department of Agriculture are able to work together to support each other if there is temporary short in staff situations. But we did respond to DHERD and Director Ryker's request about additional labor at this time, and it's just because of the potential, hopefully not, recognized with the animal industry that because of the shutdown of the restaurants and hotels and the schools, that this current pandemic situation created a disappearance of food waste, and it's affecting, I'm sure you saw it in the news a day ago, it's affecting our hog industry because there are hundreds of hog farms that rely on food waste to cook and use as part of their feed source for their pigs. So we're trying to locate food waste for them, but we're also put out a grant proposal for farmers to apply as an emergency relief by the department, and I can explain that later. And this experience has assured us that in a statewide with statewide food insecurity, that our reliance on tourism, hospitality industry does have a direct impact on our agriculture industry. You know, a lot of our farmers have communicated with us that they've lost 50 to 60% of their markets just in the first week of the slowdown or the stay-in-place measures, and the stopping of farmers markets and the phasing out of food service only for takeout. How many households is the next question in our state that have achieved the Hawai'i recommendation of a 40-day supply of food and water? We would defer to Hawai'i. We believe it's a Hawai'i recommendation, and we have not tracked the number of households for their recommendation. Does the state have MOUs, MOAs established between commercial food distributors and city, county, state, federal emergency management agencies to enable them to coordinate and respond efficiently in the instance of natural human-created disasters? How much in state storage of critical foods, parentheses, sample foods and infant formula, end of parentheses, is in commercial and government-held food resource reserves? We learned that some public institutions have contracts or MOAs with Sodexo. Our understanding is that Hawai'i does not have MOUs, MOAs established with commercial food distributors, but we would defer to Hawai'i to answer. In general, our understanding is that Hawai'i had worked with the state procurement officer to put out a RFI several years ago with the food industry here in Hawaii and other associations for support, and the SPO did not receive many responses. So Hawai'i, we had heard that they did sign with the Salvation Army with its mass feeding task force lead, who has a number of relationships with food distributors, and Hawai'i has engaged with a number of food distributors and works with the county so that jurisdictions at all levels are aware of the planning efforts. As far as on the food reserves, we defer to Hawai'i's ESF 6, which DHS is the lead on the plan planning of the storage of food reserves for a disaster, that would be Takayama or Department of Defense. And that effort of storage of food reserves will be supported by logistics management and resource support by DAG. And I think that's the end of the questions that we received.
Okay. Any other questions, members? We did get some questions from members, but what we'll do is we'll send it to you in writing so that you can respond, and then we'll post them on our COVID-19 response webpage.
I have one question.
Oh, one question. Okay, Senator Marwaki.
Hi, Phyllis. Just one question. I've seen USDA forms. They've been really complicated. I'm just wondering, in terms of farmers applying for these loans, whether your agency is doing some outreach, helping them, if there are these complicated forms, so that we don't lose support to our farmers if they are available.
Loan division does work together with USDA's loan program. We are, as I mentioned previously, planning to have a board meeting on April 14th, and we're going to ask the board to activate the state of Hawaii's ag loan emergency program. So I think that our process might be kinder and gentler with the paperwork. Our loan officers really do try to work with the applicants, but we can also try to the best of our ability to refer them to the federal program if they don't want to work with our state Department of Ag emergency loan program.
So I guess my question is also, how are you working with the USDA so that you can get some information and can help our local farmers to understand that and to be able to apply for the federal loans as well?
We do receive information from USDA on their programs. I can get back to you and check with our staff how we've done it in the past. Usually we refer them to the appropriate agency if they don't know where to start. We give them the contact information. Or during 2018, when there was flood and lava disaster, we did work together with USDA Farm Service Agency with setting up community information centers and being together in person, taking applications from the community, from the farmers.
There is a local USDA office, right? A district office like SBA that you can work closely with to help get more of those funds to the state?
Yes, there are USDA field offices statewide in Lehue, here in Honolulu, and then also I think on in Maui County and on the Big Island in Hilo.
So I would just urge you to work with them and see how we might get funds and help our farmers. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Kidani.
Thank you, Phyllis, for joining us today. It's not really a question, well, I guess it's a question, but I really appreciate the drive-through farmers market that was going on at the Blaisdell. I'm wondering if DOA has is going to try and see if we can do that in other places on Oahu as well as on the neighbor islands to support our local farmers and also give us access to fresh produce.
Thank you, Senator, for the question. The drive-through concept, I would give all the credit to Hawaii Farm Bureau. They looked at what they had heard was a model on the mainland, and they were very quick to react. What I would like to share is that, we've been working very closely with getting information out to not only Hawaii Farm Bureau, but other farming organizations. On March 13th, I was informed that the KCC Farmers Market was going to be closed, and farmers were scrambling because they had harvested and gotten inventory packed and ready to sell at that market. So again, thank you to the Senate for the farm to state concept. We contacted PSD immediately, worked together with the Farm Bureau, getting a list of foods that was now stuck and didn't have a home. And we worked with PSD to give them the information and connect them to work together. We've also done similar efforts working with the Ulu Cooperative, getting some of their frozen ulu sold to public safety again, and we're also assisting with off-grades of avocados that we were able to connect public safety again to use them, to purchase them. So, the farmers didn't get their full price that they would have gotten at the farmers market, but they were able to get some kind of revenue at an agreed price between a state institution like public safety and farmers that have lost their farmers market venue. We have also connected with HHSC and DOE. I know that DOE has a lot on their plate, excuse the pun, but we have been trying to communicate with them about it. So those are some of the things that we are in conversations with the various farming organizations, working with governor's office to work to a mutual win-win situation of how we can get more farmers markets opened again and still address the social distancing concerns. So we are involved, but I must say that I give all the credit to Hawaii Farm Bureau for the drive-through farmers markets, and I understand that they are looking at having that done on some of the other neighbor islands and in areas outside of urban Honolulu.
Thank you, Phyllis.
Thank you, Phyllis. So I'll just send you the rest of the questions in writing, and then when we get your response, we'll post it on our website. Thank you.
Okay.
You guys want like 2 minutes? No? Oh, okay. Superintendent, you ready? Okay, so next on the agenda is Department of Education, and we're very lucky to have our superintendent here in person.
Thank you. In person. We did sanitize the desk this morning, so, and you're the only one that came in person.
I understood we were supposed to come in person.
So thank Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Do you have any opening or?
Can I give you an update?
Yeah.
Okay. So good afternoon. I'll give you a quick update, Senators, of our meeting, our board meeting yesterday. I did put before the board two requests and one information item. One request was to accept the assessment waiver from the U.S. Department of Education, which they did so. And so now that's formalized and everyone's notified. The other request was a waiver of policy 102-15, which are graduation requirements. And what that allows me to do now is to roll out graduation requirement guidance, which will be rolled out on Monday. We are finalizing that today and going through that final document. There are a lot of details about things like what happens after third quarter grades when we haven't been back and there aren't items, instructional items that can be graded, what happens with AP courses and AP exams. AP exams have been delayed, but we have received word, for example, that the College Board is providing AP exams online and will be helping with devices if there are device needs. What happens with ECE courses at the University of Hawaii. We have CTE courses that require applied demonstration of learning, and so that no longer is available during this quarter. So it provides guidance on all of those items. We also have 5 schools in Oahu who are on block schedule, so it provides guidance on those. Block schedule schools, for example, have the unique situation that they have a half-credit quarter 4 course that hasn't started until quarter 4. So what happens in that situation? So the board did approve the waiver. It does allow me now to roll out this guidance, and then the principals will be working with their teachers, the high school principals with their teachers next week, and then rolling out information to parents about where their students are. We have 11,183 students who are eligible for graduation because they have senior student status, but about 10% of those students are not on track. And so with the guidance, it also allows us to now plan for the additional supports and time that the students who are not on track, what they need to do to get on track to graduate. The idea is in quarter 4 to get most of those students with the additional support so that they can turn around grades that came in at an F in third quarter, and thus would make them ineligible because they're missing a credit or potentially more than one course credit in a core area that then could interrupt their access to college or even to workforce, etc. The other is the students, which is a much smaller group that are part of that 10%, who were off track for graduation from the very start of senior year after second quarter, and so those are students that need extended year support into the summer and into the school year. So we're tracking all of those students. The other piece we're doing is making sure that students have, especially our seniors, have devices at home to finish and be able to get online if they need to do credit recovery, especially of those students who are behind, via our e-school system. So right now we're inventorying every senior to make sure that they have access to a device, and if they don't, how to give them access. Kids who don't have access to the device today are usually kids who also don't have access to the internet, and so it goes hand in hand, and so we're looking at those two. We've had a tremendous rollout of devices and hotspots, access with our vendor partners who have provided it for free to many families, and so we're doing well there, and I hope to be able to come back to you with specific numbers in that area. The third item that I took to the board was a letter of commitment with HSTA that was signed several weeks ago when we went into this work-at-home mode, and so that was just informing the board of the fact that that side letter or that letter of commitment with the HSTA is in place. It basically allows us to be in partnership around the work that we're doing with telework, with still curriculum development and execution. I will say that the teachers are working in new and tremendous ways. We have lots of examples of kids doing their curriculum online, but also checking in with the students. I also want you to know that this body had previously approved the homeless liaisons and funding for that, the homeless liaisons that are serving students across our state. We have about 3,000 students who live in some type of alternative housing situation, and the liaisons keep track of them. We have partnerships that those liaisons have access to, and we have agreements with that provide services such as showers, basic needs, in addition to food and our core work, which is a curriculum package that is done very confidentially. We don't tend to talk about those because we want, again, the privacy of those students protected, but we do have that in place, and I wanted you to be aware that that's working extremely well. I will also mention that I had mentioned at the board that by April 30th we would have missed 27 in-school instructional days, and so these alternative type of designs and models for instruction are extremely important to keep kids connected. And if we needed to extend beyond that and close for the rest of the year and continue using this enrichment approach, by May 23rd we would have missed 46 instructional days in school in terms of traditional instruction. I am part of a network with other states, and we are all looking at how to continue instruction. There's probably 7 or so states that are not continuing instruction, but everyone else is in some format. Almost everyone is using the same model that we're using, again, a mixed methodology model. It does allow us, again, to also pay attention to social-emotional needs of our students in addition to academics. When we're watching the kids connected online, there's a lot of joy in that connection, and that's really important at this time. There's a lot of scary things happening around them, especially for our younger students, and so that connection is extremely important. We have lots of guidance documents that we're developing and distributing internally to our staff. So each group, our guidance counselors, our school social workers, our teachers, our support staff, they are all working under a variety of guidance documents that are documented and are co-created with principals, complex area superintendents, deputy superintendent and I, and all the assistant superintendents working together. So everyone is mostly teleworking, but we do have some employees who are physically working on sites, who are essential staff that also have to be on site. So we have most of our staff who are essential staff are teleworking for most of their time unless it's necessary to come in. So we don't have anyone coming into sites unless it's necessary. Food service workers certainly are one group. Our custodians on a rotating basis are another group. Maintaining our properties is extremely important. We don't want grass growing really tall and creating unsafe conditions in our communities. We also have our security team that is, they are all working as well, doing their rounds to make sure that our school buildings and properties are not vandalized. I'll stop there and see if there are additional, I wanted to just bring you up to speed on what I discussed with the board yesterday, but I'm sure you have questions.
Thank you for being here today, Superintendent. I really appreciate it, and I guess I want to say I'm impressed with what you guys were able to accomplish. I have grandchildren in the public schools, and I know that they're doing Google Classroom and iReady, etc. What I do also know is that I think you've given the principals freedom, to do different things, whatever, because they're not all doing the same thing. And I know that 2 of my grandchildren at Kwananako and Launakila have been having homework all week already. My other grandson at another school is still doing iReady, and they're not being graded on anything, but it's, I think, to get them more more acquainted with the programs, but their actual assignments will come next week. So can you explain to us how, with the autonomy that they have, that is there a certain date by which you expect them to complete curriculum, or because we're not talking about grades at this point, this is just to keep them busy and keep their minds going?
But it's optional, right?
Yeah. So
But
I
the
think,
work
yeah.
is not optional. We're having students check in and teachers check in, making sure that the work is completed. What we're not doing is grading the work unless the credit is needed. For example, for a high school student that needs a unique credit and hasn't completed some work towards that credit, we don't want them to go into next school year missing that credit. It's just going to delay everyone's schedule in terms of trying to do catch-up work. And so we are supporting authentic credit for those groups of students at the high school level that need to complete work to graduate on time, to get their credits to be able to promote within the high school. But those
bargaining
are...
contract, how do you reconcile? You've obviously figured out a way, but if you can just describe how you reconcile the limitations of the collective bargaining contract and what Senator Kidani is talking about.
So we have a continuity of learning document that is a set of resources and expectations that everyone is following, a set of, and schools are selecting from those resources in addition to resources that they have that they've been using to be able to, and documents that they're creating to keep everyone engaged with continuing the practice on the curriculum that's been delivered for the first 3 quarters of the school year to keep kids learning. The new materials that teachers may be introducing in 4th quarter, the reason we're not grading it is we don't have the in-person support necessarily where everyone will get the same amount of support and if they're missing an understanding, right, of that material. And so we don't want to penalize students. We just want to give them the practice and introduce them to that new material. So we're keeping that learning going and not grading it for 4th quarter. We have some kids at the high school level, some students at the high school level who are taking, for example, early college courses, and so they can continue that. That will be graded. If they're taking AP courses or AP exams, that will be graded. That's graded, of course, externally in terms of the AP exam, but that allows them access to college credit. So that's why it's a blend, although most students are in ungraded situations for 4th quarter. We also have students who, again, if they failed the class or got an F 3rd quarter, we don't want to say that they have to come in the summer or in next school year. We're going to have too many needs that are being transferred into a next school year. We're giving them the opportunity in 4th quarter with supports and with those connections to be able to make up work now, which helps bring their grades up so that they can graduate on time. So that's why it's a mixed application, but it's also differentiating as much as possible and as much as needed to get kids promoted on time and graduated on time. And we have the union working with us around reviewing that. They are certainly well aware of our continuity of services approach, continuity of learning approach and documents, and have been with us on a weekly basis looking at materials and so forth. We're also, as we roll out the graduation guidance, have shared that with them as well so they can take a look at that. Again, we want to take every step forward in unison, right? So there is support all around and messaging to teachers and all other employees is the same.
So speaking about seniors only who had an F in the 3rd quarter, they're being graded then?
They're being given the opportunity to submit new work in 4th quarter to bring up their grades.
Okay.
So students who are in good standing by the end of 3rd quarter, we're saying they have met the majority, or basically most of the curriculum they've already met. They're in good standing. They've met the requirements for the credit. And so they're doing more enrichment and practice work, which they still have to turn in, but it does not affect their grade because of the fact that their grades are already in good standing. So we're working through the logistics of all of this. That's what we're finalizing today. We've been working on this for 2 weeks. This is a very detailed process, and every principal has a hand on this document, so that on Monday when we roll it out, everyone is clear about where students stand.
So what percent of our seniors have a failing grade in the third quarter, do you know?
So 10% of our seniors are not on track. So about 1,100 or so seniors, or 1,200 seniors are not on track. And they're not on track either because they have a failing grade third quarter, or they were already not on track early in the senior year because they had missed credits along the way. And so those are kids that would have been in some kind of extended year situation anyway. So again, the kids that have a failing grade third quarter that can turn in new work and work with a teacher fourth quarter, we want to work with them to get them. They would have been on track, and we want to make sure they all graduate. The kids that need extended time because they've missed multiple courses, those are students that will have a plan of study that goes into the school year. Some of them may be missing a full semester, and they're going to have to go into the fall. They would have known that already even before this had started.
So aside from the curriculum that the teachers or the individual schools are going, has the DOE given information to students that they can go outside what the school has to offer, whether it's Khan Academy or other maybe music and the arts kinds of things that they might be interested in doing, just as more information for them and to keep them going? Because I know some students are further ahead than others, and whatever curriculum you're giving them, they'll be done in 2 hours of their routine during the day, so they probably need other things. So have you guys provided a list of those?
So there's lots of online resources, and for families that are looking for additional work through instructional packets, those are being done. Those are primarily below the high school age, but there's lots of online resources. Khan Academy is one good example. The great thing about a resource like that is that the math skills are the ones that colleges are most concerned with nationally, in this kind of interrupted instructional time that as kids who are transitioning into college, making sure that they keep their practice in their math skills, because just about every college student ends up with some kind of freshman math course, and also it's a gateway and gatekeeper to upper level math courses, especially if you're going into the engineering or medical sciences, nursing, and so forth, the STEM areas. So that's an area that, yes, there are lots of resources that are attached to that continuity of learning document. There's a resource site for parents that they can go into. There's a resource site for students directly, and then teachers individually are also adding resources that they connect with their class of students.
How are we helping our special education students, during this time? Because they're not coming to the schools at all. Are we going to them, or they're just at home with their parents?
Yeah, so there's a combination of approaches being used. For some special ed students, they're on track. For many special ed students, they're on track. They can go online like their non-special ed peers and use online resources, and so they're connected that way. For students who are receiving services that can be provided via some kind of telenetwork, there are service providers who are working with them individually using technology, confidential technology resources. For students who have, for example, OTPT that has to be provided via an in-person service, occupational therapy, physical therapy, those students students are going to need additional supports, and we're tracking very carefully whether we get to a point in time during this health crisis where buildings could be opened for those targeted services. I had hoped to see whether, in the month of April we could do that, and now that we've moved to kind of a broader shutdown, that's probably not as likely, but as soon as I can after April 30th, I'd like to be able to provide those services to students that can only be provided in person.
Thank you.
I just have a quick question. Will the meals program be expanded to additional sites? My understanding is there's currently 50 sites, but some sites, like in my district, Lelehu and Ka'ala, they run out quickly and there are long lines.
So we started out with about 38 sites. In 1 week, we're at 50 sites. So we're growing very quickly. We're growing about 5 to 7 schools per week. It is driven by our highest need Title I areas have to be prioritized in this federally funded program. And then we are asking, when we get requests from external providers how they can help, we're asking them to set up in the areas that we're not set up so that they can provide food. And so we'll continue to grow as there's that demand. I think there are 2 challenges for us right now. One is the masks, which there's a shortage for everyone, and we're going to get to a point that we're not going to be able to open up sites if we don't have the masks for the food service providers that are interacting with the public. The other is the the disposable food trays, which we're running out very quickly. Just week 1, we had almost 50,000 meals we served. They're not usually on disposable food trays. So we're getting donations. We're trying to purchase, just like everyone else is trying to purchase those. And so that's a way in which partners certainly can work with us. But we'll continue to grow as quickly as we can. There's a couple of things we cannot do. We cannot accept food from anyone. We've had some restaurants who want to donate food. We're not allowed to do that per federal law. That's because we can't guarantee how the food's been handled, and so that's not allowable in serving our minor children. We also cannot allow someone to come onto our properties to serve while we're serving. It is assumed that the other group that's serving is serving under the federal guidelines of our food service. And so we've run into a little bit of that too, where someone will show up and say, we have food we want to give out, and we are not able to do that. So we are partnered up with our counties, with nonprofits, with churches, other locations where food can be provided within that same proximity. So that, because we certainly have families with food insecurities, and we want to be able to be as far-reaching as possible.
So you're not turning them away. We're
giving them some guidance about how that could happen.
Got it.
Yeah.
I think at some point, though, when you run out of all the plates and stuff, then we'll probably have to go to sandwiches and stuff that you can just wrap in foil.
We're looking at all kinds of bagging foods, which changes the food that we're serving. Right. So we are already planning for those.
Thank you. I'm really impressed, too, with how you've got this huge system to be so well organized and serving the students. I just wanted to know what you were doing on the pre-K level, and on the other end, the seniors, graduating them, the pre-K and the child care that you're giving to the healthcare workers. How is that being organized, and is that statewide?
So we're not handling, EOEL is handling the pre-K, and we're also not handling child care. So we have other agencies who are handling,
and they're on site handling it.
Yeah. So if they were already networked with us in terms of using our facilities, yes, absolutely. As we continue to watch this crisis roll out, if there are ways in which we can make our spaces available while still maintaining the requirements we need to in terms of cleaning spaces and making sure they're healthy spaces, we will continue to do that. We've always done that in emergency situations.
So you have numbers, or is that all just being done by EO?
I don't have those, but certainly we have partnerships that we can ask them to provide those to you. Yes.
Thank you.
Is there a website that is being manned if parents or students have questions that they need support for?
So we're encouraging parents, because all parents are connected to a school, to call the school's main line number, and that's being, those boxes are being monitored and responded to. They're not necessarily always going to get someone that picks up the call, but they will have someone that responds to that. The DOE's main line is also being monitored, and we have staff attached to that. Also, if it's a school question, we distribute that to the school. If it's a state-level complex question, we're handling that at the state level.
And for your grab-and-go meals, are the same meals being served statewide, or it's different meals in different areas?
So there may be some differences depending on stock and what's available in each location.
Now, I think Senator alluded to that Ka'ala was running out of food. I think there was a change as to, before the children had to come and pick it up, and now you're letting the adults come.
Not exactly. We can't let adults come because we can't feed communities. And so what the DOA has allowed us to do is to put in place other systems. For example, our homeless, we can arrange to take food to them as opposed to having them come. But we would still have to verify that the food is going to a child and not to an adult. And so that becomes challenging because we have folks who come in saying they have a child and asking for 5, 10, 12 meals, and we have no way of verifying. If they're going to a home school where they're known, it's much easier. We're trying to work through that, but we're still largely distributing only when there's a child present.
So, and I've had a couple complaints that they see adults coming with and are handed 5, 6 meals. So your recommendation is that if that is happening, they should call that school site? And
they can, but if that's happening, that's also, again, this is why we're not allowing media to come onto our campuses. We have families who come in who have arrangements. They have a child who is disabled. We're not asking them to pack them in the car. We're making arrangements for them. They are fostering child who are under protective custody. We know them, and so we know that adult. So we're not going to be able to explain why a particular adult is getting handed some meals, again, for the protection of what that adult is providing for children who are fragile, who are in protective custody, who are receiving other services. And so we know those situations. We have those kind of agreements, and we know who those adults are.
Thank you. And I just wanted to give a special shout out to Principal Stacy Kunihisa. I don't know if you've seen her 2-minute videos. Yes. She does one daily to pep up the students and, make them feel like she's still there for them. So
she did a whole Choose Love social-emotional learning program online herself every morning.
I didn't see that.
It was pretty exciting.
Yeah, that was interesting. Thank you, Superintendent.
Thank you.
Quick question.
Yes.
How will Comp Ed be calculated, and on what factors will the formula for Comp Ed be based?
Yeah, that's a child-by-child basis, and so when we come back, whenever that time period is determined that we're coming back, that will be done via the IEP meetings, and there are lots of services being provided right now, and then there are some services that will have to be comped, and those are being tracked on a child-by-child basis by that team of teachers.
Okay, and lastly, if you could just follow up on Department of Ag's request regarding availability of cold storage.
Yes, yeah. I noted it down. That didn't come through me, and I'll check to see where that request went, and in what format, make sure that we're answering that one.
more question. We had talked about CIP and R&M, and is that now being expedited so that you can get some of this work done since the schools are closed?
We are continuing that work, actually. We're tracking those projects. All of those team members who are on those projects are working. Our vendors who are assigned to those projects for CIP, for example, are on site doing that work, and they have social distancing guidelines for how that work happens.
Good. Thank you.
Superintendent, I had a communication from a part-time teacher, and I don't know if he was speaking about himself. I don't know what school it is, but he's basically alluding to the fact that the part-timers were let go. Is that correct?
So we have quite a significant number of staff who work part-time hours. They are only called back if needed. Again, because the physical school building is not open and certain programs are not occurring, they would not be called back for those part-time hours. And so they've been provided information on how to seek unemployment benefits.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There being no further business, thank you very much.
Can I just say one more thing? I know that the seniors are very concerned about whether or not they're going to have graduation ceremonies. And I just wanted everybody online who's listening to know that we're committed, as well as a department, to do everything we possibly can to see that a ceremony does take place. But we have no control of what happens with this pandemic we're in. So that may not be able to happen, but we haven't given up on the thought.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.